With me now here on set to discuss former senior CIA field operative and ABC News contributor Darrell Blocker. And before I get to my questions, I mean, that's the first time you got to see that interview and actually see what Tom was able to put together. Any quick thoughts? I know you were paying attention to what he was saying. And
well, all injuries aren't physical. I think the psychological aspects of torture are overlooked. And to hear someone being tortured sometimes is worse than undergoing the torture yourself.
So that's interesting from what you know and the way the Russians operate and Putin operates. You know, how bad does it get? It's funny, you see him and, you know, he looks good, he looks healthy, but you know that's not what it's like when they're being held captive.
Well, it sounded like he said that he'd been out for a couple of weeks, so he's probably had some time to heal.
Right.
But it'll be a while before he truly heals. The Russians are really, really bad. What they did in Afghanistan, what they did in Syria, what they've been known to do over the years, people are going to start seeing that as the war crimes reporting starts to come in. I don't even want to think about what that young man actually had to witness and hear and endure.
Wow. So he says that the Russians accused him of being a part of the CIA. Do you think they really believe that? Because if they did, they're not going to let him go.
Right. If they had actually thought he was CIA, he would still be in custody. No one would even know that he was found, because as I understand it, no one had heard about this individual until he turned up in a prisoner swap yesterday. But I'm not certain about that.
So Putin, though, seems to be obsessed with the CIA, with our intelligence community. He's former KGB. This sort of is like his go-to. Oh, they were a spy. That's his thing.
That's
Why?
kind of the knee-jerk reaction of most countries. If they can accuse someone of being a CIA operative, of having ties to CIA, that gives them some credence for holding on to them. But we don't get caught that often. I know it seems like the CIA is running around everywhere, but there are limits to what we can do. And certainly we wouldn't have a former Air Force guy running around in Ukraine when we would send properly trained people in to do that.
Far more careful. From what you know about the KGB, and what you know from Putin's background, what can you tell us about their intelligence program? And I don't ever want to compare it to the CIA, but I mean, he's a pretty evil person.
He is. If you date back to the Cheka is the World War I era, which became the KGB, which became the FSB. Historically, they've always been the heavy hammer. They've always been the boogeyman, so to speak. If the KGB was listening, everybody was concerned. If anything that involved the KGB, the Russians would typically either not want to be associated with it or make sure that they were towing the line.
So what's your take with this prisoner swap and the fact that they freed this American? Why now? What does it tell us maybe about the war in Ukraine or Putin's confidence or, you know, his Russian military leaders? I mean, what do you, kind of bigger picture, what does it tell you?
Well, until I saw the individual and saw what he looked like, I was thinking one thing, but as soon as I recognized that he was a person of color, if you look back to the Iran, when the Iran hostages were taken, the Iranians wanted the blacks to be sent home. They didn't feel like they were true Americans, or they didn't feel like they were the Americans that they needed to hold on to, and there were a couple who refused to leave. So could be diminished by the fact that he is a person of color. That could have been factored into it. And prisoner swaps do happen. There are rules, there are laws, there are rules in war. So hopefully that's a part of this, that there will be a trend, that there'll be a continued swapping of prisoners.
You know, that's interesting. I never realized they looked at people of color differently.
Completely differently.
Why is that?
You know, they're actually pretty strong in Africa. If you go back to Lumumba, back in the 60s when Zaire was gaining its independence. A lot of African leaders are educated in Moscow. A lot of African leaders were Marxists and Leninists in their ideology. So they really do have a track record of attracting and educating Africans in their ideology. So to know that Putin has strong ties there really isn't surprising.
Interesting. Always great to have you here on set.
It's great to be here.
Yeah, I
on
know
set.
you're lecturing, spending some time here, and
Yes.
sharing your expertise. Thanks for being with us and doing it for us.
And thank you for having me.
Great to see you, Darrell.
Great to see you.
All right.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.